De Panne-Koksijde. It is a difficult time for cycling, I think it's fair to say. And of course it's a pretty punishing course that's opened up over the next 3 days. 4 stages in total. And when you look at the list of winners of the past, you realise just what a big race this is for cycling. Alexander Kristoff, in his pomp last year, not only took this, but then kind of branded himself up for Flanders, which is rapidly approaching. And although there are some big names who decide to give this one a miss, so that they can keep themselves fresh for Flanders itself, Alexander Kristoff is one of those guys who likes to go all in at this time of year. And that's precisely what he's done. In fact, he happens to be in our breakaway of 17 riders at the moment, which have formed themselves after what has been a difficult start to today. So, heading towards Zottegem, inland from the coast of De Panne itself. And as you can see, at the sideline in the morning, not too much warm weather gear. The Italians, of course, bucking that trend. Long shorts, leg and arm warmers on occasion. Anyway, it was a rollout this morning into what was at least dry conditions for the start, but the thunderclouds did roll in, and I can tell you we've had rain, we've had hailstorm, we're in sunshine at the moment, but it's anyone's guess. We've got all seasons, it seems. Man for all seasons, Andre Greipel usually races very well throughout the year. He's back, of course, from injury. And indeed, we've got a number who are back from sickness as well. So let's hope that they function at their highest, including Alexander Kristoff himself, who's not been well, in fact, missed Ghent-Wevelgem, as if the cameras weren't in enough trouble already. Lars Bohm was one of the big favourites, particularly to go over the Muur extremely well today. Just letting everyone know that he's still here. We just saw Michael Shah, but his team, Taylor Finney and Tom Bowley, are already up the road. Ethics Quickstep are the ones, I can tell you, that on the road at the moment are busy doing the chasing, and they've got to, because essentially they've missed out. So a tough one to engage with, particularly at this time of the season, and it draws all kinds. Also Kittel, you may think, well, a bit too tough for that man. Well, he's a bit of a hard case for a big man, and of course he goes very, very quickly, and there are some quick days here to enjoy, particularly stage 3. Time trial stage 3B, 2 on the same day. But good atmosphere at the top of the day, and Tony Martin is expecting to try and stay in touch and then maybe do his thing when it comes to the individual time trial and steal it perhaps from Alexander Kristoff, who tends to hold on today. Well, a minute's silence was adhered to today. Kristoff being called by the crowd, but I think it's worth more than that. It's well worth remembering that Diane Myonghyia from Roubaix Lille Metropole sadly passed away, died of a heart attack on the Criterium International. And more seriously, perhaps, purely because of the way he passed, Antoine de Moitié of Wanty Group Gobert, hit by a motorcycle on the Ghent-Wevelgem. 4 riders crashed. 1 motorcycle couldn't avoid the riders on the ground. And indeed, the motorcycle fell upon Antoine de Moitié at the age of 25. He's no longer with us. Tough way to start the day then. Underway with Sylvain Chavanel in sort of reasonably chatty mood with direct energy. Lots of eyes on Andre Greipel, just wondering how he'll cope today. He does go over cobbles pretty well. He's a very, very strong man, and of the fastest guys, he can climb okay as well, especially on short, punchy climbs, and that's what we've got plenty of today. So it was a kind of a pensive, I guess, start to the day, not just because of our losses from the peloton, the world peloton I'm talking about, but also because of what lays ahead. Mixed weather, mixed terrain, and Magnus Backstedt, one of the biggest tests there is in cycling. You've taken it on.
Yeah, I've done quite a few of these 3 days of the Panne, and I say I always enjoyed the racing here, and it's somewhat chaotic, as you can see. There's always crashes, there's windy, small narrow roads, typical Belgium racing, but that's part of what we all kind of enjoy, and certainly it's an interesting part of the season.
Well, you saw Patrick Bevin of Cannondale. He fell in the neutral zone, I'm afraid. And Johan Alfredo of Francis de Jeux is also out today. So 16 kilometres of neutral. I guess just allowing everyone to ride themselves into the day. This is what we're dealing with, heading from the coast of De Panne and heading into town, and it's well, inland I should say, and indeed ultimately into town of Zottegem. 11 Hellingen to take on, several pavé sections as well, which are not very nice at all, especially when they're muddy and wet. And of course at this time of year, that's precisely what they are. So wish everyone the very best. There's a number of rushes along the way, one out before we get to the circuit. And the circuit itself, well, we're already on it. We've seen a 17-man breakaway pass through the finish, and it has got some amazing quality on board. In fact, so high is the quality of the break that we're assuming that it may we're assuming it's going to make it, quite frankly. Belendries is the climb that you're looking at right now, and this live pictures as we come to you. 7% max, 7% average, 12.34% is your maximum here. So a nasty one, but it's one of those that was cobbled and has been tarmacked. So thankfully they're going up it rather than coming down it, because it looks reasonably fresh as well, the surface that is gracing it. We've had sun, we've had hail, we've had rain, we've had just about everything, quite frankly. And as you go through this lot, you can see that when you Luke Rowe starting off top of the day as one of the out-and-out favourites for this stage, and Danny Van Poppel likewise, Christoph too in the house, and my goodness, it is a fighting force, Magnus Baxter.
Well, it certainly is a big group, and a very strong group at that, and I think Ethics Quickstep, who are currently on the front of the bunch here, riding to try and bring it back, are going to have their work cut out to really bring them back. It's only 1 minute and 11 seconds, but if that 17-man group out front here now are happy to work together, I should say, then I think it would be very, very difficult for Ethics to bring this back. Although on this particular circuit there's a number of steep climbs. We're going actually up the old, should we call it, monument of the Tour of Flanders, the Muur van Gerardsbergen. Average 9.1%, maxes out at 20% for a kilometre, and it's cobbled as well. So it's nice to see that back in the bike race again, because I think since they dropped that one out of Tour of Flanders, it's to me, it's, you know, that climb has to be in there.
The Muur. Yes, it's an absolute monster. I'm not quite sure why they stripped it out. But the way it comes as well on our circuit, it's absolutely beautifully positioned, I think it's fair to say. The Muur maxes at 20%. It's a frightener, let's put it that way. It's designed to be so. When you come over that and you take out the Klemhoestraat, once you've dealt with that, it's 5.3 kilometres, are pretty flat to the finish line. So there is an end to the hell. And when you get there, I imagine it's absolute delight that you just made it through the day, apart from anything else. Win or lose.
Yeah, definitely. But the finishing, should we call it the final 10 kilometres of this particular stage are quite tricky. The Klemhoestraat is not the most difficult of climbs to do, but it certainly feels, you can certainly feel it in your legs going over there the final time. And then it's quite a technical, tricky sprint as well. You're going over a railway bridge, and then a long sweeping right-hander, which is just about flat out in the dry weather, so it's going to be tricky today when it's wet. And then it's only a couple of 100 meters to the line.
You're on the 3 days of De Panne-Koksijde, and 79.5 kilometres of today remain. We've got a 17-man breakaway, and honestly, anyone from the breakaway could win today. It's that higher quality, not least defending champion Alexander Kristoff, who's gone and worked his way off the front. And alarm bells are going off for Ethics Quickstep, are engaging in most of the chase at the moment, because Tony Martin was supposed to keep up today and then win it on the individual time trial. That was the idea. There we are. Our friends from TVB, as you can see down there, I think that's Ryan A, actually, on board the motorcycle, doing a little bit of rolling reporting at the moment. Races in Belgium usually incredibly well disciplined, and it was a surprise to me, to be honest, that Gent-Wevelgem was the one to suffer a fatality with a motorcycle, and Antoine de Moitié In fact, his team Montigrupo say they respect the motorcyclists involved, and they don't apportion blame to a highly experienced rider. So the danger can come anywhere, to be honest, in cycling. It is a dangerous sport. Magnus, you've had your moments as well through an illustrious career. It's hard to get the balance right, because we need to keep the pictures coming, of course. But I think that there needs to be some kind of distance protocol, and maybe the UCI get together and have some kind of at least training regimen for those who are involved on the road, whether it's security, medical, race direction or photographic.
Yeah, I mean, they have a protocol as such or a license that you have to get to be a sport director and drive a team car in the World Tour peloton today. So I guess there is the potential of having something similar for motorbike drivers and anyone else involved in the convoy of cars. I've got to say the majority of the guys that are driving the motorbikes are very experienced. Some, quite a lot of them are ex-cyclists themselves, just for that particular reason, so that they can read the peloton, they understand the movements of it, and with that it should be safer. Although accidents do happen, and of course it was a terrible one that happened this weekend.
Yes, indeed. Well, our thoughts naturally with the friends, family, colleagues of the fallen, and it's always a pall that hangs over the next event, and that's what we've got right here. But so you forgive us if we do try our best with respect to move on and try and deal with this. And there's a perfect example, Magnus, of a motorcycle going through, may have got the call but decides to engage the riders when clearly they're going to get close over to the left-hand side. He sails through and gets away with it, but honestly, you do that 1,000 times and at some point there's going to be an issue.
Yeah, there will be. The one thing that in these kind of circumstances, you get called through and it looks like it's okay, and then all of a sudden the peloton just moves across. What some of them tend to forget is, if you use the horn, at least let the riders know that you are there, then they can take into account, because they're all happy to sort of make room and make sure that the motorbikes have got their space, because we all know that they're there for a particular reason. A lot of it is media, and without the media, the world of professional cycling would not exist anymore. So we need to sort of, I think, work together and come up with an idea of how to bring this forward, and make sure that the motorbike drivers always signal and make sure that they're letting the riders know where they are, as much as sometimes the guys in the bunch need to be aware that there can be motorbike riders sort of caught in an awkward spot that they didn't intend to get into.
Just looking at BMC, they're here with Taylor Phinney, and we've got Tom Boll, we've got Loic Vlingen and Rick Zabel. He's got plenty of backup, and Taylor Phinney earlier on today, I mean, it's great just to see him functioning so close to his absolute best. He's still not got apparently complete 100% movement in his damaged leg, which again another motorcycle was involved in his accident.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you know, we can. There's always accidents happening throughout every season, and unfortunately, it's been a bit more in the past. You know, the last 2 years than it has been in the past. I got to say though that at certain points, you know, it is just an accident, and we have to work together now to establish what to do going forward.
Here we go then, up this the latest GPM. There are prizes here, and this, no prizes for guessing, is always a tough call. You deal with the 10 boss, and starting to loom large in our minds is the big welcome back to De Muur, which maxes out at 20%. Just having a look at some of the strugglers. That's Masish Bodnar, who's not looking at his happiest at the moment. And if you're not happy right now, and when you've got to do all this again, you're going to be very unhappy a little bit later on.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That's, there's an awful lot of climbing to come, and you know, these relatively short climbs, and 10 boss that they're going up just now here in the bay, and the peloton is only 450 meters long, but you know, 7% average. And in Flanders, it's not the length of the climbs, it's the steepness and the number of them, and the consecutive climbs that sort of come in, you never get a respite. It's always flat out. You're going up the hill, you're dropping down the other side, and you've got to be aware of what's going on, and then there's a bit of crosswind, twisting, turning, and then all of a sudden you're on the next climb. So it tends to be very hard racing in Belgium in general.
We've had some long-range attempts at victory, and as you can see, even at the back, it really is a long day ahead, I'm afraid. And Bora just starting to struggle a bit. It's Pulsberger, I think, Postelberger, who is just managing to get back on, but only just. Yeah, tough day. We'll take a break in a few moments' time, and then we'll be back. The gap's at 1:05, and Ethics Quickstep are trying their level best to close down what is almost the ultimate escape group. Nace, Rowe, Van Poppel from Sky, Durbridge, Kerkelaer from Orica Greenwich, and defending champion Christophe. 1:06 is the gap, with 72.6 kilometres remaining of today, and we're gradually, slowly but surely approaching the mur, the wall, the hazard, I guess, or at least the obstacle that was taken out of so many great races. Well, it's back here, and it was reintroduced with the 3 days of De Panne. As Masters Bodnar was in the original breakaway of 17, which is now reduced in number to 16, courtesy of his exit. Just had enough after the last climb, which he crested in 3rd place, but then went pop. 72.3 to go, tells you that we are 6 Ks away from the mur itself. Let's just describe it for you. It's over 1 kilometre in length, but it's the incline which is so punishing. The average is 9.1, but maximum, and for a good portion of the climb, Magnus, 20% is no laughing matter. No wonder they call it the wall.
It's certainly no laughing matter. It's a very tough climb, but the biggest problem is the actual lead-in to the climb. It's one of those that just gets slightly steeper all the time until we turn into the Kapelmuur, which is the final section up the climb, at which point it gets just ridiculously steep. And today, with the damp conditions as well, it's impossible to stand up on the bike because your back will just slip on the wet cobblestones, and I'm sure we'll see a fair amount of attacks going on in that on that particular climb.
You can see there's a lot of green here, which is pasture. You can also see a lot of muddy fields as well. There we are, as if by magic. They hold the water. Whenever there's farm movement, traffic, it drags mud onto the road, and even the heavy rain can't wash it all clear. We've had light to moderate rain earlier on today. We've had hailstones, storms and stones as well. Right now they're on a drier section with good grip, as you can see, but that doesn't really count for cobbles, and we've been over some muddy cobbles as well, some pavé section, and when we get to the climb itself, it's mixed as hell, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is, but this particular part of the road heading down towards Gerardsbergen is really, really bad in terms of it's a concrete road, and there's massive concrete slabs effectively. You can see there on the right hand side of your picture the what we used to call it the Valley of Death, because once you put both your wheels down in that gutter effectively, there is just no coming back out again in any other way than on your backside. And also when you're riding along, there's a line sort of where the one concrete slab ends and the next one starts, and you can almost see the riders, their wheels just all of a sudden just bounce up. It's a horribly difficult road to ride, and not very pleasant at all.
The only thing going for it is that they actually set concrete on this road, as opposed to just flew-in blocks, which they do on some of the very flat highways. But nonetheless, you can see lots of overbanding here as well, which is essentially to fill in the gaps, and that's at best it's shiny, complete and slippery. At worst it's missing. You can get yourself a pinch puncture centre of the road or at any point along the way.
Well, I think 90% of Belgium are probably missing that sort of filling in the middle, because the only thing I can really describe it as is if, you know, when you're sitting on a train and you get in that sort of train track noise, it's the same on the bike. It just gives you a good thump every 20-30 meters or so.
And of course, where the gaps have opened up in the past, they've then repaired it, and that usually sets at a different height, either too high or too low. So yeah, you can, if you actually just look at the rider's elbows, that really tells you how it's being transmitted. Wrists and elbows, your first human shock absorber, I guess, as you approach it, and that's what we're approaching right now. Gerardsbergen, it's got the wall. and we're going to be going up it. Quite nasty, to say the very least, and deemed too nasty on occasion for certain other races. But it's here, and they brought it back, and we're going to play with it today, Magnus.
Oh, brilliant. I absolutely love this climb. It's one of my favourite climbs in Belgium, probably one of the harder ones as well. But I don't know, it's just something about this this part of Belgium and the cycling heritage that is embedded into the village of Gerardsbergen.
Roads are drying nicely as we just approach, but there's a chance of rain coming back to the race, especially on the looping course that we've got. Southwesterly wind blowing today, but because we're on a circuit, it's hard to manage the wind, because of course you're going to face it in all different ways as you swing round in a circle, naturally enough. So Sky doing a lot of work. Christian Nace just setting a little bit of pace. Farazin of Top Sport Vlaanderen also just rolling in. BMC heavily represented. Bol, Finney, Vlegen and Zabel. And in fact, there they are, listed on your screen at the moment. That is a very handy bunch. Working for Taylor Finney, they want to nurse him home, get a good finish not too far back, presumably from someone like Alexander Kristoff, and then steal it on the individual time trial, which you'll have on Sunday. This race tests just about all disciplines. Stage 3A, so the third day in the morning, that's the time trial day in the afternoon, we have a sprint, which is why it's tempted the likes of course, Marcel Kittel and Andre Greipel. But Greipel, oh dear. Well, here we are, and it looks like he actually fell off the road into the gully and got spat.
Well, there is that gully or gutter or whatever we want to call it, and I think he's tried to move up onto the bike path, and there's a lip there that you so easily get caught on, and yeah, that's a nasty crash, that one.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Not great. And going down and staying down is Zupa. Here it is. Well, there it is. It was the gully.
Yeah.
You've got to watch out for storm drains as well, because some of the vents are right there.
There was a massive hole in that gully just down the just before where he crashed. I think he actually was in that gully, and then his front wheel got caught in it and went straight over the handlebars.
Well, at least he's allowing himself to be pulled up by both arms, so I think he's got away with it. Don't think we'll see much more of him today, however. He's the fourth rider so far to exit the race today. So here we are then. Here is the Muir, the big one. We're on the cobbles, and they look suitably damp and testy, and it's Taylor Finney that takes them on first. Grind into this and get the best out of it you can, Magnus.
Well, he's going straight in through this very city centre of Gerardsbergen, across by the church, and it starts climbing, but it's only about 7% or so, and then we're on this long stretch and now heading up to a right-hand turn, gets narrower, and then another right-hand turn, and then you're into effectively a bike path width of riding, and most of the time they can't actually, well, they can't take the team cars up there, so they have to go around it and pick up the riders at another point later on.
I've got to say, sparsely populated and attended by fans today, and is that Kristoff, who's just had a chain issue at this crucial moment coming onto it, is waiting to see, and it looks like there's been a couple of nudges along the way. Well,
they're all trying to get up onto this slightly smoother, slightly smaller stones, which where your bike rolls a lot better, and even in the front group there we could see the guys trying to get up the curb and getting the back wheels caught on the edge, and that can certainly mess your tyre up.
And in fact, it's in the peloton, so scratch what we were saying about Kristoff. Let's have a quick look. Just a touch of wheels. One of the Rompot boys getting out of shape, and in fact just adding to the misery of some others as well. Meanwhile, back up at the front, you're looking at a proper grind in here. Here we go.
This is the final approach now, and you're in about 50 meters time, you're about to turn right, and that's when it starts getting really steep, and the cobblestones just get so much worse. Here we go then.
Interesting to see Jens Kirkelaar here, and as they turn onto the narrower section. Now look at the degradation at the side of the road. It makes what is already a narrow pathway even narrower, because you don't want to get close to the debris at the side. One of the classic pictures. This
is the point now where it gets super steep, and you can see the stones get even worse as soon as it steepens up. They're actually struggling to keep the stones into the ground here.
You'll see a lot of riders stepping off later on, won't you, Magnus, as you get that compression at moments like this?
There's a possibility. If you don't have momentum, there's no real way of getting the bike moving again. So there you go. But now Lars Boom is on the front here now. It looks like there's a bit of action going on in the peloton.
Lars Bohm absolutely upset, as you can imagine, at missing out. That corner has been a picture of success for some in the past, but right now 52 seconds is the gap. It's trimmed down by about 18 seconds in reasonable short order, and look at the quality of the chasers.
Well, definitely good quality of chasers. They're just going up the Kapellmuur here. There's a nice chapel on the top, which is effectively has become a cycling mecca to go and visit.
Still not the crowds that we're used to seeing, but they of course have chosen this area, those who have made the journey today, and we just hope that everyone, of course, in these troubled times stays very, very safe. 65.7 kilometers to go. Those out front have actually dealt with this. They've got Klemmerstad to deal with, and then they come back for the third sprint of the day. 3, 2 and 1 bonus seconds, by the way, at their disposal, and then they get to do it all again.
They certainly do, and I mean, this is not quite the Tour of Flanders, but I still got to say it's a pretty good crowd that's come out here.
Very good crowd, considering, of course, everything that we've been bedeviled with over the last few weeks, and indeed last weekend. 65.5 kilometers to go. It's a working day, of course, as well in Belgium, who traditionally have more religious holidays than anyone else, I believe, in Europe, and so therefore probably the world. I think it's 18 or something like that. It's a good place to live if you like it, if you like a day off. But yeah, 50 seconds now is the gap. It's closing, Magnus. I thought with the quality of the group up front, it might well have, even at this sort of distance, an option to go all the way, but don't rule out some very strong men who could bridge to it.
Well, I think there is a potential that the time gap will drift out again. Although we've seen a bit of a move on the Muur here from some of the main players in the peloton, but as you can see, it's also very strong out now. It will take some time for all of these guys to regroup and actually see how many teammates have we got in here, how many guys can ride, and what state are they in. So I think we'll see the time gap actually drift out to probably more than what it was before the climb, just because the front group stayed relatively intact and sort of rode slightly steadier up the Muur.
So as the gap hovers around 50 seconds, it was 1 minute and 20, and indeed more, has their cards been marked by some of the other strong men here who want to join. Welcome back. It's a quality group up front, and they've been able to re-extend themselves. It was trimmed back to about 50 seconds before we went to a break. It's now back out to over a minute. So let's tell you who are the main players as far as this race is concerned, and indeed who of the main men ahead of the race are actually in the breakaway. Alexander Kristoff, defending champion, did the job here last year and then went on to win Flanders. Teo Finn is just getting himself back in. Don't worry too much about him. Might be riding on with a puncture, actually, which is a clever thing to do if you can, if you've got the bike handling skills, which he does have. Kristoff's in the break, along with Morkov, his Katusha teammate. Tony Martin declared himself as being highly interested in this, is not in the break, but is in the pursuers. And in fact, Essex Quickstep, as you can see at the front of this group, so it's all thinned down. There's been a lot of sort of breakdown in the chase. Massis Bodnar has fallen, unfortunately, after getting into the gutter, so he's no longer part of the break. But Lutsenko and Lew Vestra are. Now, there you would have thought would be great guys to have up the road for Lars Bohm, who's trying to make his way over to his teammates who are up in front of him. So that's another conundrum to deal with. Taylor Phinney certainly going to be a contender, although I believe he's just had a puncture, and in fact as the chasers start to split in the more open sections, you can see it really is starting to get a little bit brutal out there. And for those who find themselves really well and truly disenfranchised, it's a hell of a job just to get back in. Let's just talk about those who are left in this this chase group then, or in the breakaway. Vliegen and Zabel join Finney and Tom Bolly from BMC. From Orica Greenedge, Jens Kerkelaer, who many people like to tee up as a possibility for Flanders, he's in the break as Finney slows down. I'm not sure whether it's a technical, a comfort break, a combination of the two, but the chasers are just about to catch Taylor Finney, so it's not going to be him today. One wouldn't have thought. There he is. He's done a good rolling job, however, for those for his teammates up the way. But this guy's Ethics Quickstep are working for Tony Martin, naturally enough. And in fact, why not Ilya Kaiser or perhaps Kittel, keep him in the frame ahead of the sprint? Yes, you heard that right. Marcel Kittel is here. So, incidentally, is Andre Greipel. Look forward to that. So Durbridge, Turbo Durbo and Jens Kerkelaer from Orica Greenedge. That's a very good partnership to have in the break. Likewise, Christian Nace, Luke Rowe and Danny Van Poppel from Sky. Tasty stuff, joined by Pedersen from Stolting Service and Topsport Bladderens Frangin. It's a quality break, Magnus Backstead, and having the defending champion and the guy who loves to come here and then go to Flanders, and well, if he wins this one, it'll be 100% in 3.
Well, yeah, it clearly worked out very well for him last year, but he's coming back off some illness, and we'll just have to see how much he's got in the body at the moment. This is just typical Belgian racing, though. The climbs tearing the riders apart, and then getting onto some nice bit of crosswind, and everyone chasing to get back in again. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting setup at the moment, with 1 minute and 8 seconds to this relatively select peloton as well. I don't know whether we should call them a peloton or the second group.
Yeah, it's getting to be that way. I'm sure we will be talking about a second group before you know it. 1 minute and 9, it's still very much doable, but you'd say that if it wasn't for the quality of the break, which is absolutely outstanding. As Magnus was saying, Alexander Kristoff has been sick, and so there's been question marks about his form. He did miss out the Ghent-Wevelgem. He wasn't part of proceedings there, but he wouldn't engage in this, and he certainly wouldn't try and be part of a breakaway unless he was very much in control of himself. No, but looking at the start list for Ghent-Wevelgem, there was quite a few of the main players that were out with illness. So I don't know how much we should read into that, because they've had a hard program leading to this point, and it may just be that they're slightly overworked and decided to rest themselves and take an extra day off, and maybe get back into De Panne here and sort of finalise their form into Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix the following weekend. Those who aren't here, the likes of Bonen, Cancellara, Van Marks, Sagan, Peter, that is his brother Uri is here incidentally, but Peter Sagan's not. Geraint Thomas, who's had fantastic success, of course, in the first early part of this season. Greg Van Avermaet, Stibar, Rollins, Terpstra, Van der Berg. Okay, that's a pretty big list, and it's pretty impressive. And of course, they'll be dealing with Flanders. But those who are here, we've got some spectacular names who've decided to grace our screens for these 3 days. And most of the cream of the crop are up here at the front right now. There's certainly a bunch of good guys that I think would have had this race in their sight to do well in, and try and win it as well. And certainly when you're adding Kristoff into the mix of it, yeah, why not? And I'm thinking one of my favourites, if this were to stick all the way into the finish today, one of my favourites for the overall here is going to be Luke Rowe. Luke Rowe is a fantastic athlete. Say it quietly, but I've been a fan of Jens Kerkelaer for a long time, and he's had some desperate luck. And in fact, even today, he's actually come off the bike. I didn't see whether he fell or whether it was just a puncture. I'm hoping it was just a puncture, but he's back in, and he's here for Orica Greenedge. He's their sort of Belgian secret weapon, and when it comes to the grizzly stuff, he's pretty handy. He's got Turbo Durbo, Luke Durbridge, alongside him as well. His Aussie teammate from Orica Greenedge. So don't be surprised if there is a surprise in your mind, but it wouldn't be in mine if Jens Kerkelaer went well and strongly. Trouble is, he's got to deal with Morkov, Kristoff, Bodnar. No longer he'll have to deal with him. He's out. But Vestra, Lutsenko, Bolly, Taylor Finney's now gone back, Vliegen and Zabel. It is thinning down, and there's a lot of ideas about pushing into the gap from Ethics Quickstep. I think they'd like a bit of assistance, quite frankly, because the gap is still going up just a little. It's now 1:13 with 57 to go. Grisly, nasty, spiteful day today. 1:12 is the gap, as you can see. And this is our breakaway, and they're just sort of wrestling with each other at the moment. Meanwhile, further behind, Essex Quickstep are losing manpower and then sort of reassembling themselves. They're being lent on by everyone else for the chase. Marcel Kittel shelled out the back. Tony Martin, a big threat for the title here, particularly as we end with an individual time trial. So Essex wanted to look after him. Good bit of bunny work there.
I was going to say, interesting line there from Luke Rowe as he goes into that roundabout, decided to take the other side compared to the rest of the breakaway, although that was there's a large bunch of potholes they had to bunny hop.
Well, he dealt with it. Essex, I'm not saying they're not motivated, they certainly are, but when will their shoulders drop? If that gap fails to come down, it's just trimming ever so slightly now and again, but it's only a matter of a couple of seconds each time, and we'll be over our start-finish line before you know it. Just looking at the cup, the head at the moment of the race. A lot of quality personnel, and they're just starting to think about dispensing with their rain jackets, as you can see. Be a brave man to do that on a day like this fully. I think just tuck it in the back. So the Clement Hoefstruck, which will be our last climb of the day, is what they're about to take on. Only Max is at 4.2. It's more of a drag, but as you quite rightly pointed out, Magnus, it's where it comes that makes it a big impact late on.
Yeah, it does, and it's a good springboard as well for anyone who wants to launch a late attack that's feeling good and is not overly happy to drag the likes of Christoph back into finish for a bunch sprint. You know, you can certainly put the hurt onto a few riders on this one if you really wanted to.
Well, they're only about 500 meters from the top of it. It's only 720 in length, so they've already dealt with what, 250 of it right now. In fact, as you can see, they're taking on bottles while engaging with it, so not that much of a strenuous test, but once again, just as it comes right at the very last. When we have completed this next time by, we'll only have 5.3 kilometers to go until the finish line. Surely this group don't want to bring Christoph to that position as a group, do they?
No, definitely not. I'd be surprised if they didn't try to at least put some sort of an attack in on and try and get rid of Christoph. Although that is, if Christoph is anything near to full fitness, then it will be very difficult to do so. Although looking at Christoph right now, he's pulling a few faces already on at this point, so it's probably not at 100%.
Well, it was a bottle zone, so I'm hoping that Michael Morkov didn't just hand over his rain jacket to a fan. It looked that way. I think there might be some teams coming up and saying, actually, that belongs to us. If you don't mind, thank you very much. Pro cyclists, even at the highest level and from well-funded teams, not given to chucking away any of their kit, are they?
No, definitely not. It's too valuable.
Yes, indeed. And of course it has a resale value, or indeed an auction value at the end of the year, so it's well worth holding on to. So we've got a brief hiatus at the moment, so it's worth actually just digging into what Magnus has been up to this weekend. He arrived tired today, slightly grumpy, but he's all right now. Your juniors have had a fantastic time, have they not? As we just see a little push here by BMC to try and inject a little bit of pace through the feed. It's Vliegen.
Yeah, no, I got a youth development team of 15 and 16-year-old boys and girls, and we took them across to Belgium for the first international outing this weekend, and we came away with 2 7th places, one from my daughter Eleanor and one from James Cody in the first race, and then on the second day we ended up actually winning the race with Ben Moody. So it's been a fantastic outing, and an awful lot of stuff learned from these young riders as well, in racing in different conditions and different type of roads, and with riders that race their bikes in a completely different way to they do here in the UK. So it's a lot more aggressive out there, and I think they took it in their stride and really impressed me. So it's been a fantastic weekend.
Good. Well, it's nice to know that you're part of the future of British cycling, Magnus. Don't want you leaving or anything.
I like to put something back into the sport, and it's very rewarding as well to work with these youngsters to see how quickly they take on board all the information and all the experience that I'm trying to pass on to them, and they kind of take it in their stride and apply it directly the next day. So it's
Backstitch cycling, it's called. By the way.
That is it.
If you want to join the fun, and sounds like they're having plenty of it. Great success, guided by Big Mags. Here we go then. Vliegen decided just to roll off a little bit. It wasn't overly committed. You can see that from his puppy paws, which are hanging over his bars. And in fact, it's just almost a reminder to everyone else that we need to keep the pace up if we're going to make it all the way to the end. Taylor Phinney has gone backwards into the main pack. So has Bodnar from the original breakaway. So it has thinned down, but so very modestly, quite frankly. And they still have to deal with Alexander Kristoff, as well as Kirkelaire, Turbo Durbo, Christian Nace, Luke Rowe, Danny Van Poppel, Lutsenko Vestra. This is a fantastic group. I still think they might actually go all the way. They're holding a minute and 10, and they've been doing that for the last 20 Ks.
Yeah, they certainly have. But looking at the pace in the bunch here now, there's a few more teams coming up to the front and getting some more pace into it.
Time to join the fun if you want a piece of the day. And Lotto Soudal, who didn't make it into the break, they've got Andre Greipel, of course. Now, don't start tittering. Andre Greipel can go up a few inclines. I actually saw him come up Vaughan 2 as the best of the sprinters on the tour, and he looked amazing. So if he can do that, he can certainly do some of the lumps here, and he's also a quick man who will find his time on the sprint. He has himself, though, come back from injury. He had a rib damage in the Algarve. He abandoned Paris-Nice and he missed the Milan-San Remo. So this is a good condition check for Andre Greipel, who will want to go well, and I'm sure Lotto Soudal would like to give him the opportunity.
Well, with Andre Greipel in there, I think he's always going to be keen to show himself and you know, do the best that he can. It's very unfortunate that he's been out for so much of this season,
especially after last season, eh?
Yeah, especially after last season. But we are still only in well, effectively end of March, so there's still an awful long way to the end of the season. There's a lot of bike races going on, so the key thing is not to stress about it and just work your way back and train hard and come back into racing when you're fully fit and you can cope with the pressure.
Well, they're using the camera bike here as best they can, just to get a little bit of drafting and slingshot away and around. Turbo's just going through, and at the back of this group at the moment, just taking the most of the wind assist, I guess you might say, is Alexander Kristoff, a grisly old Viking that he certainly most is. They're just about to come to our start-finish line and then head back out on this 48-kilometre or so loop once more. 48.8 in fact. They're in what would be the Flamme Rouge zone just about now. So a little kick down and round they come into town for yet more hell by the looks of the weather up the front of them. Look at that. It
does look like it's pretty grim out there, but we're coming up towards, like you said, the final kilometre here, and the very technical finish that Zottegem provides you with. Turning left again here and then over a railway bridge, and then you've got a very tight right-hander, although it's more of a bend, but it's certainly not possible to take it in full flight if the road is ever so slightly damp.
As Ian Stannard, who will have started amongst the those underscores as favourites for this race. He won't like the fact that there's a minute between himself and his teammates at the moment, although Magnus, I know you've kind of put the beady eye on Luke Rowe for this year. You're expecting him to go well in the Classics.
Yeah, I am, especially
demanding it, actually.
Well, especially after how Luke went last year, and you know, riding in the favour of his teammates, both in Tour of Flanders and in Paris-Roubaix, and he was still finishing right up there. So I think with another year under his belt, I have a good feeling that he will show well.
I think he will. I think he may well show well this year as well. It is looking extraordinarily dramatic. When the sunshine here and there's rain elsewhere, you know there's a rainbow. But goodness me, it looks absolutely hellish out there with that black cloud beckoning. Here's that little railway intersection that we were talking about. No level crossing, it's a bridge, thank goodness. But this little run in, by the time they hit that with 350 metres to go, this really is hellish, isn't it? Look, an off-camber corner, barriers waiting to collect you if you're for the unwary, and then round the curve. It can be one heck of a dramatic finish, this one, can't it?
Well, it certainly can, and has provided to be so on a number of occasions. And it is a difficult sprint to time, because it's still too far from the exit of that corner to really launch full gas from there. But you still have to hit it out, and you have to go around that bend effectively first wheel, and then just hope that you can hold on to it to the line.
Here come the chasers, as you can see. In fact, it's our breakaway who's just going through. Here are the chasers right now. Sorry, it was our sub monitor. And they go over the railway line, so they're dealing with the same thing. Now, is it 47 seconds is the gap? This is 350 to go. It's usually accurate, the timings here, so let's have a look as they come across the line. No more bonus seconds up for grabs. 3, 2 and 1 it was at the line, and I think it was Vestra that actually took some of that, or was it Lushenko at the line? Probably of no consequence, because the gaps today, by the end of it at least, are likely to be huge. But the gap is down to, what, 44 seconds. It was a minute not that long ago, and a minute and 10 they were dicing with. The bell that rings for them, it almost sounds like an alarm bell, and they will be ringing for these guys. If you want to get something out of the day, it's now that you have to go for it, because the final lap has plenty of hiding spaces and places along the way. 42 seconds now, they're fully committed, and the chase is most certainly on. Magnus, this has a whiff of potentially coming together, or at least some quality bridging over to the best of this group. We'll get Magnus's thoughts after our break, which we'll take right now, and then we'll be back for the resumption of hostilities in this final lap here. Yeah, more squeaky moments. We just had a VIP car making a nuisance of itself, almost taking the elbow of one of our breakaway riders. I think it was
Farazain.
Well, there we are. Anyway, they've got very vocal with them, and let's just hope that that doesn't happen again. On, of course, the first race after the loss of Wanty Group Gobert's Antoine de Moitié of Ghent-Wevelgem. Sadly, motorcycle, and he resulting in a fatality. Dan Mogier as well. Myungir of Roubaix Metropole died of a heart attack, cardiac arrest during the Criterium International. So there have been dark clouds in more ways than one hanging over this race. Terrible weather, Magnus, as well today, but giving away to sunshine, and even that in itself is another thing to conjure with. Riders would prefer constant weather, even if it's bad.
Yeah, it's certainly easier to deal with, because you dress yourself for a specific type of weather when you start, and then if it changes, then it's always difficult to get the right amount of clothing, and you know, you got to effectively dress yourself up for bad weather, or you got to strip all the kit that you put on in the morning off again, and hand it back to team cars and so on, and it tends to be a bit of a yeah, a bit difficult to cope with, to be honest. Even if you are an experienced bike rider, you just got to send one rider back, which means you haven't got him riding on the front anymore, and he wastes energy, and so on and so on. So yeah.
Ethics Quickstep, they've got some help now, but they've not exactly been helping themselves, have they, of late?
No, they've certainly missed out on a lot of important breaks. They seem to, like today, 17-man break goes up the road and haven't got anyone in it. That's basically, in my book, they forgot to set the alarm clock this morning, and weren't quite awake when things started going off. They've just effectively put themselves in a position where they have to do an awful lot of hard work. Chasing a 3, 4, 5, 6-man break is not a problem. Chasing a 17-man break, you got to be really on it, and waste an awful lot of energy to get yourself back into the game again. And you can see that they're eating in onto the gap every so often. There we go. You see the rain jackets and everything have been stripped off, because we are now going racing, and within the last 50 kilometers, oh, a bit of a crash there.
There is, and I suspect because a lot of team cars are here to try to help out and offer up either some sustenance, or indeed take rain jackets. As you can see, it is the final lap, so you want to sort of dispense with as much as you possibly can. Unfortunately, the road has helped Cyril Lemoine to an early shower by the looks of things. He's not alone, but he won't like that at all. Just as his covetous teammate Hofstetter had been back to the car to hand over his rain jacket, I assume that Lemoine had also dealt with it. Not much space to deal with here as well, so lucky that he went into the gutter, as it were, as opposed to into the middle of the road. 42.4 kilometres to go, 49 seconds. We can start calling them home now, essentially, Magnus. Next up is Berendries, 12.34%, but nearly a kilometre in length and averaging 7.8. That's no laughing matter. They'll be on that in 7K's time.
And Berendries is one of the more difficult climbs to deal with as well. Oh, he just got that completely wrong, that corner. Yeah, didn't realise that the road was turning quite as sharply as it did, and got himself hedged. Yeah, Berendries is a tricky old climb because it's steep, but it's not crazy steep, but it goes in steps, so you're getting a steep section and then it flattens out a bit again, and it kicks up again and flattens out, and it keeps on going like that, and then there's no real descent on the other side of the hill either. So where you are in terms of your energy expenditure on the top of the climb, you're gonna have to dig deep from there again to cope with accelerations and try and get yourself back into the group again properly if you've been slightly distanced or whatever, and it tends to wear you down dramatically.
No sooner if you dealt with Berendries and you're almost straight on to the 10 boss. Yeah,
it's like I said, Belgian racing, there's never really a respite at any point, because you're looking at how these guys are in the front group here now. They're spread out across the road, which means that they got a crosswind coming in.
And look at the state of that road. In fact, the helicopter shot, I think the director decided not to show you the helicopter shot because the road is in such appalling condition. It's got concrete sections with overbanding. It says 49 seconds, but on this straight section of road, as you can see, the pack have a view of the Brave, I think it's fair to say. It says 49 seconds. I'm not sure. It is that incline, of course, and so it may well be that with the foreshortening of the camera. But they're within sight. The hounds can see the hares, as it were.
They certainly can, and I just wonder how long we're going to have this big group together, whether there are a couple of strong riders in here that would prefer to go at it alone. And I'm looking at Liu Vestra from Astana, who certainly looks very, very strong in today's race, and no doubt Luke Rose currently just floating around the back of this bunch, not doing any work. I think he would be another man to put into the mix of this. I'm not sure Christophe, though, because Christophe is looking like he's hurting quite badly and working hard on every drag. And,
well, he's been resting up for a little bit. I've sort of been keeping a beady on him. And this is the first time I've actually seen him come to the fore and do a little bit of work. But as you say, didn't look overly comfortable, did he?
No, he doesn't look comfortable at all. So if there's an acceleration on one of these climbs, I just wonder how much he's got to respond with. And that's a shame if we're looking for what's coming up on Sunday, because you know, winning Tour of Flanders one year and then not being in 100% condition to defend it is not a nice thing to do.
Hot tea and honey, by the way, on a day like this, often handed out by the team car. A little bit of a treat goes a long way at moments like this.
Yeah, it certainly does. A nice bit of hot tea. It's quite sweet as well. It's really quite nice when you're sitting on the bike and it's cold and miserable. I
have actually seen riders when they're wet and cold take the hot tea and just tip it over themselves.
Have you spoken to me? Have you? I did that in the 98 Tour de France. We went over the Col d'Olivier and it was snowing on the top, and I was swinging on the back of the gruppetto, last group, and I knew if I stopped to put a raincoat on or anything like that, I'm just going to be dropped. Now that's the end of the Tour de France for me. So I remember a Rabobank car handing me a bottle halfway down this descent. I was shaking so badly I almost threw myself off the bike. And I just popped the lid on it and poured the hot tea over the top of me.
Because you're already wet and cold anyway. You may as well be wet and warm.
Exactly. That was my thinking at that point, and it helped.
Oh, good. All right. And you made it that day.
I did make it, actually.
Good man.
With about 30 seconds, we made it inside the time cut.
It was down to the tea.
Yeah.
Tea power. 56 seconds then, with 40 Ks to go. 56 seconds is the gap. They've managed to pull it out again. But at what cost? Because there's some big, nasty climbs still to come. Welcome back. Scott Thwaites is having a bit of difficulty getting his rain cape off, his jacket, I should say. Capes are, I think, a policeman used to wear a long time ago. But anyway, he's finally extricated himself from his own garment with a bit of help from Postelberger. And anyway, he's got away with it. Minute and 1, though, the gap's gone up, and there's been a great response and by our breakaway to the threat that was being posed by Lotto Soudal and Ethics Quickstep.
Yeah, they have. Just going back to Scott Thwaites, they're trying to get his raincoat off. The problem nowadays is that the raincoats are so slim and so tight fit on the riders to be able to race with them. Used to be back in the day, they more looked like a parachute as soon as you put them on, and you just couldn't race with them properly. But now they are extremely tight fit, so they're great for racing in. But if you have to take them off, then all of a sudden you're in a serious spot of bother. But looking at this now, I've just spotted Luke Rowe there going down to short sleeve and short legs again. It's time to go racing.
It certainly is time to go racing. Tom Bolly as well has kept his rain jacket on. Just about everybody else is starting to dispense with some garments and then kind of go all in, even weather-wise. You just want to be as race ready as you possibly can be if this turns out to be a quick one. Which I think it possibly will. It's back out to 1 minute and 3. Have Ethics Quickstep blown it? Are they starting to pop a piston here?
I think that might be very much the case. They haven't got an awful lot of riders to play with. They've got Marcel Kittel and Tony Martin on the last wheel of that blue train near the front, and then they effectively at least three.
Ooh, there we go. Tag as riders moving up and moving around each other. Unfortunately, 2 have been grounded, both from Bora, and that's not good news at all. That's Jan Barter, who's on the deck, as you can see, just gets himself back up. He looks more bruised than anything else, so he's going to try and get himself back and underway. But that was a tangle, and a tangle amongst teammates is almost the worst thing of all, I'm afraid. And I think that might well be Postelberger, who was busy helping out with the rain jacket earlier on, a few moments ago. But Postelberger, he was helping Scott Thwaites, and now he finds himself on the deck. It is indeed him. No hurry to get up as well, which is always a bad one. You see the movement within the group, and in fact it's Bora on Bora, I believe. Well, it certainly was at that point, taking down a Lamprey rider as well at the same time.
It was just basically got his front wheel taken out, although I don't know whether that's the right phrase to use, because if someone in front of you moves, then it's your responsibility to move from them.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, just got caught up on that one.
Yeah, and it was as one of the Lotto Soudal guys was moving up. I don't think it was Greipel, but nonetheless, Lotto Soudal have got an interest in closing down the break. They have nobody in it. Likewise, Ethics Quickstep, who must be feeling a bit bruised by their own team strategy at the moment, or maybe just ill fortune. Sometimes, you know, it's good to get your bad luck out of the way, and maybe they'll be thinking about that as they head towards Flanders, and indeed Roubaix beyond. How do you see Tony Martin going going in the big 2?
Well, I think Tour of Flanders is definitely going to be competitive.
I think so too, and in fact he's huge odds at the moment, 66 to 1.
Oh, there you go. Not a bad shout, that one then. But yeah, he's climbing well on these shorter, steeper climbs, and he's clearly got the engine to do the work that's required in between. I'm not sure yet if he's on the actual start list for Roubaix, but I think he has the power output to do a Paris-Roubaix very well. It's just a question of whether he's happy on the cobblestones and can handle the bike. And I'm doing the rain dance every night here now to get the rain to come to Paris-Roubaix, because it's been too many years running the dry, and I think we're due a proper wet, miserable, messy Paris-Roubaix at some point.
How grisly was it when you did it?
It wasn't very grisly. I mean, we only had a couple of slightly damp sections, so unfortunately,
so basically, you're wanting others to engage in something that you didn't have to put up with. Is what you're saying?
When I won it, it was dry. Unfortunately, I would have liked it to have been wet. It's a bit more epic then. But I've done it in the wet on a number of times, and it's just the best day out.
Well, doing it in all conditions are these guys. At least there is no rain falling, and it looks like we may well get away with it for the rest of the day, although there are storm clouds gathering. right now, as you can see, it's Lotto Soudal that really are intent on closing down this gap right now, and Marcel Kittel has come up to help out with some duties, and clearly this is on behalf of the aforementioned Tony Martin, who you can see his familiar visage. He never wears spectacles. He's one of the few who just takes the wind straight in the eyes, and his blink rating is quite remarkable. It has to be, but he prefers it that way.
Yeah, I prefer to ride around with glasses on in all conditions. I just couldn't cope with all the spray in my eyes like that.
Here we are then. Berendries, not a pleasant one to take on, and then very shortly afterwards we've got the 10 Boss. Now that's relatively flat, 10 Boss, compared to some others, but that doesn't mean it's not a test, especially on this final lap here of the opening day of this fantastic race, the 3 days of De Panne. And heading to Zottegem today. In fact, we've been there once already. And in fact, we're on this second and final loop right now, and there, wearing #1, is Alexander Kristoff. What condition is he in? It's a question I don't think even he knows, but he'll have some answer for himself and everybody else at the end of today. He's certainly a danger man, of course, but he has not been well. Also in this group, some pretty handy riders. You're looking at Lushenko, number 46 from Astana in the pale blue. Fantastic athlete. Likewise, too, they got a diamond duo almost in here from Orica Greenedge with Luke Durbridge and Jens Kerkelaer. And don't forget, Nace, Rowe and Van Poppel from Team Sky.
Interesting to see that Marcel Kittel is now up on the front of the bunch here, providing a certain amount of workload. It just means that Quick-Step have now started to lose riders and lose even more riders. So this 55-second gap is looking very good at the moment, I think. A couple of other teams are getting up there, and I think Cannondale have missed out on the front group as well. So they need to do something. But Jack Bauer on the front there now, I think if he's going to make a move, he needs to make it on the Berendries and try and split up and get a couple of select riders with them. And really hit the gas full gut.
You see the speed that they're going here. It doesn't look like much, but when Christian Nace takes a bottle and it almost pulls his arm out of the socket, and here we are. We're starting to see a response now on the Berendries. It's a perfect launch pad if you've got something left. There's an anchor man being sent up here as well on behalf of Team Katusha. And there'll be others as well. Jack Bauer does look like he's got the bit between his teeth, and he is going for it. But it's putting minor fires out at the moment. And if you see, as you quite rightly said, Marcel Kittel, they're running out of personnel, and they've all gone now for Tony Martin, who stays with that lead group. Now, he's matching the pace of the breakaway at the moment, Tony Martin, so if he had been in the breakaway, he would have been capable of staying with them. But he's burnt his teammates. There's only Tony Martin left as this group gets, the chasers get more and more selective and will become essentially a chasing group, fully fledged in its own right.
Yeah, you're right. But they need to commit to this over the top of the Berendries now, and Pim Lichthart doing a good job and putting the pace on. But I feel that this is all going to come back together, and then who's left to ride, really? So they would have probably been better off just waiting a bit longer, going a bit slower. But again, Pim Lichthart putting the pressure on and effectively causing a whole bunch of issues for Ethics Quick-Step and potentially for the chase.
Can't help himself. One of those who went down on the deck a little bit earlier, Jan Barter, struggling to get back in, and you can almost hear him cursing. There's a thought bubble there that we're reading for you. 32.7 kilometers to go. Thank you, by the way, for everybody who has spared their thoughts today, particularly of the fallen. Let's leave it at that, shall we, for now. Never forgotten, but we have to move on with our amazing sport that so many of you love so much. Sven-Erik Lieberg has gone big, and he's going for Van Poppel today, possibly overall as well. Well, why not? Let's see how it pans out, shall we? But he's got some work to do. They all have, with 32.3 kilometers to go, and 46 seconds is the gap. Has been a response from the breakaway, and look, they're calling for, come on, if you all want to join in and be part of today, then do something is the word that's being handed back.
Well, Colin, I think the problem is going to be if this stays as it is, 44, 45 seconds, even down to half a minute, the next two stages, although they are somewhat chaotic and there's an awful lot of crosswind provided, well, as long as the wind blows, which usually happens in Belgium. But the final time trial has been the decider in this race on so many occasions, and for someone like Tony Martin, I don't think over 16 kilometers he's going to be able to bring that sort of time gap back on. Certainly a couple of the riders that we have up in the front group here. There's some strong time trialists with Durbridge, Kukelera, Luke Rowe, Christian Knies as well. Christoph is certainly no slouch on that kind of
that distance, yeah.
Distance,
exactly. He's done it before, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I think he was third, wasn't he, in the time trial that gave him the title here?
Yes.
Time trial of his life, they said. Well, he knows how to do it and can turn it on when he needs to. Quite often as well, you find riders and you say, well, they're not known to be time trialists, but when it matters, when it finally matters to them, they can turn it on an individual, can't they? Many of them. Well,
they certainly can do. It's a lot of the time it's the motivation. If you're not a pure time trialist and enjoy sitting out there and hurting yourself on your own, then the only thing that these guys really need is the motivation to do it, and certainly an overall position in 3 days of the Panne would be well, it's enough motivation there to really go for it.
Look at Sebastian Reichenbach in the Tirreno Adriatico, a man not noted for his time trialling at all, and he lost a podium place by just a solitary second after an amazing time trial that he really just went all in, possibly for the first time on an individual time trial.
Well, same thing with Peter Sagan last year in I can't remember which one of the American races it was now, but everyone was kind of writing him off before the time trial, but you know, he certainly did an incredible ride, and you know, he was there.
Yes, indeed. Riders can turn their hands to most elements of the discipline if required to. Notably, of course, Rowan Dennis, who did a fantastic job up the steep stuff as well, also in the United States. This is who we've got left in this group, and they're extending the gap, pushing it back out to almost a minute, and so you've got to have a belief, Magnus, that they're going to go all the way.
Well, I think I think they will go all the way today. The question is, are we going to see this complete group going all the way, or will there be a split happening on the Muur, or one of the other climbs coming in towards Zottegem? Because so far Christoph is still in this bunch at the back there in the red kit, just tightening his shoes up a bit, and with that they can't drag him in there. Now we go Marcel Kittel doing an awful lot of work here on the front now.
He's frying himself. He's back working for Tony Martin, of course, and there is Tony Martin without the spectacles. Whenever we interview him at the end of a day like this, he's always got red eyes, looks like he's been crying. He's taken so much wind damage to his eyes, however, along the way. They must sting terribly, but he'd rather do that than have some spectacles on, which always beats me.
Well, it beats me as well, but today is clearly for Ethics Quickstep all about damage control for the overall for Tony Martin, rather than trying to win the stage, because with them missing the breakaway this morning, you know, they've had to work way too hard in the back here.
Well, what damage will that have tomorrow when we eventually essentially have the Ghent-Wevelgem climbs? We're going up the Kemmelberg, the Monterberg as well, and then we have our sprint and time trial days. Of course, the third and final day is split between a short sprint day, 111 Ks, and indeed a 15-kilometre individual time trial. Just taking some sustenance. Kuznetsov, these guys are off the leash.
Well, off the leash, yeah. I mean, they're still going to cover the front of the bunch and make sure
that... Off the hook, I meant.
Yeah, off the hook, kind of, yeah.
I knew what I meant.
No, that's good.
Nobody else does. Yeah, I think their duties are done, aren't they, for the day?
Well, they're still got to make sure that they're keeping themselves up there and watching anything else that moves, because there's a potential of putting another rider in a move that goes could go across to this group. I don't think so. Watch out for Vestra making an attack here now.
Rolling round on this modest climb, and you've got to be absolutely alive to the threat, and he goes for 8.7%. It sounds reasonably benign. They've got to shake out some of the big names, and principal amongst them, I guess you might say, is Alexander Kristoff. But look at the way the Sky Riders are wrestling into this and enjoying themselves. Rowe and Van Poppel want to stay very much in touch, and they are doing at the moment. Big incline. Not exactly the most stress, but 8.7% is going to feel very, very big to them indeed by the time they get to the top of this, and they make it. And you can see it's already had a wearing impact on many of those within this group.
It certainly has to, but interestingly enough, the Christoph, although he's turning himself inside out right now to stay on the wheel of Luke Rowe, he's made this split, and Lou Vestra, clearly the best climber in this, a very capable climber, even in the higher mountains.
He's got to believe then, Magnus, that he can have the beating of the other two when we get to the nightmare climb, the Muir, which is rapidly approaching. And Christoph really looks unhappy, doesn't he?
He doesn't look very happy, but we've got to remember the next climb coming up, the Muir van Gersbergen, is also a cobbled climb, completely different type of set of skills, and usually climbers, yes, they go okay up them, but never quite as good as they do on the tarmac. Although this is now an interesting little move here.
Very much so. Time running out for those who want to be part of proceedings, and I guess you take your chances where you can possibly get them, and that's what we're seeing right now. This is Stolting Services, by the way. It kind of looks like a national jersey, but not. Mads Pedersen was part of the breakaway. I wonder whether he's been reabsorbed for them. It's an unusual kit, nice attractive one as well. Here's your quartet, and being chased by the diamond duo of Durbridge and Kerkelaere. It's Durbridge that's trying to get back on.
You just see that Lou Vestra spotted that Lutsenko was coming up there, dropped off a couple of meters off the back of the group, and gave him a bit of a respite, and took the final few meters into the group of Rowe and Christoph again. But these guys now, if they commit to this, I wonder if we're not seeing the final sort of move
Shakedown
of the day.
Certainly looks that way, doesn't it? BMC, of course, with 4 riders in this breakaway group at the beginning of the day, and now none up towards the front, and they're calling for each other to start doing some work. And big shakes of heads from the remaining Sky guys, of course. Van Poppel just saying no, thank you very much. And there it is. It's Max Kirsch who's decided to come out of the group. Mads Pedersen was in the break, so apologies for that error. But he's managed to get himself a decent gap as well, and he's hoping to bridge over. Well, you might get some surprises today, but I would be extraordinarily surprised if at least one of this number in this quartet aren't there at the very, very end on the podium. Rowe just pulls over and allows Lutsenko and Vestra to roll through, and Christoph still looks like he's struggling, and that gap is being bridged ever so slowly, I must say. It's almost like slow motion racing, and both of the Orica Green Edge boys very much involved. Durbridge and Kerkelaere. Kerkelaere, my sort of dark horse for Flanders, incidentally. So just trying to thread the road and cut off as many of those angles on the corners as they possibly can. So 2 groups of 4 with a duo chasing at the moment, just getting back in and forming a sextet that chases down these guys. 59 seconds they still hold, though, on the main body of the peloton, including Tony Martin. Not a bad gap.
No, not a bad gap, as we're hovering around that minute mark all the time here, but the gap is very small, and unfortunately it's only 2 or 3 riders that actually are working on the front there. The rest of the guys have actually got riders up in the breakaway, well, in the 4-man group there. I wonder whether they're going to make it back in again, and in that case Danny van Poppel is looking very good for a counter-attack.
Once we've dealt with our final climb, all right, let's go before that, in fact, because the Klemhoutstraat is there. Just wondering, can Tony Martin, once he gets over the Muir, do something individual here, Tony Martin? Will he want to time trial? Will he want to invest himself in this day?
I think if he wants to have a shot at the overall title, he needs to make a move very, very shortly, and invest some energy into it. He's still spending teammates as much as he can before he has to start going again. But it looked like Fabio Sabatini just coming back up again. These guys are now opening up a little bit more of a gap, and looked like the impetus from the chasing group kind of went out for a bit there, and they stopped and looked at each other. Who's going to take this, actually?
Yep, I believe you're absolutely right. The Orica boys didn't want to be lent on and didn't want to go for it as a duo. And now they're still looking at each other here. Shall we? Luke Rowe didn't look overly happy there, but I don't know how much kidology is built into this.
At this moment in time, I don't think there's an awful lot of kidology going into it, if we're going to use that phrase here. But Lou Vestra is so strong on these climbs on the tarmac here that he's putting them in all sorts of bother to follow him, which means that when they get to the top, they can't actually go through and follow through and keep the pressure on. So I think Lou Vestra would be better off just backing off just a fraction and letting the rest of the guys just be at 99% rather than at a flat out 100, which means they can roll through when they get over the top.
Well, 3 from the break now, just backing in, as you can see, not interested in engaging the chase. We did say that Orica Greenedge didn't want to be anyone's fools, and they've just left Luke Durbridge up there. We'll take less than 22 kilometres remaining. Looking at a chase group right now. Out front, there's a quartet that look very lively, and a man who is just having to be dissuaded from going for it. And 37 seconds now, 36, our chase group. The heart has been knocked out of it, and the reason is that these guys have been pushing extremely hard. Hardest of all, well, hard to choose, but Vestra and Lutsenko have been doing a lot of work. The ones who look like they're struggling, but we're waiting to see by how much. Alexander Kristoff, defending champion, wears number 1 there in the red. And the mighty Luke Rowe has found himself in great company here, and he deserves to be here, Luke Rowe. He could make some big noises in this classic season, could he not?
I certainly think he will do. He's looking in good shape, and he's been riding solidly through the semi-classics, should we call them. And I think these next couple of days here now is just kind of pitching back up to that very high level again. And
you fancy him for Roubaix, don't you?
I do fancy him for Roubaix. I think he will be on the podium within the next year or two.
And maybe this year.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, why not? Just over 20 k's to go, 39 seconds now. That secondary part of the original breakaway is now almost at an end, and look how twitchy Tony Martin is looking. I'm not surprised. He takes himself a little gel, as you can see. He wants to put some energy in here, and this is a man who is about to burst into action. Now, has he left himself too much to do? 1:11. Well, let's see how he goes over the Muir. We'll be at the top of that in 3 kilometres time, and its length is only just over a kilometre. So we're approaching it. We'll be there in 2, maximum 20%. You've seen the approach to it. Even that's rather nasty. Thankfully for these guys, they're a quartet of talent. They'll take that, they'll help each other, and then one of them will help themselves at the end. I guess having a teammate at a moment such as this is absolutely gold.
It certainly is gold worth, but it also means that they have to do a bit more right. You can always kind of miss a turn every so often when you got a duo in the group. Luke Rowe just throwing one of his bottles away there now as they're coming in through the town of Gerardsbergen and just about to hit the cobblestones here and start going up towards the Muir.
They're on the bricks first, which are clattery and nasty.
Just eases you in gently to it.
Yeah, have some bricks, have some concrete, a little bit of tarmac, some oh, I don't know, street furniture, sleeping policeman, bollard with a mattress on it. You get it all here. The climb itself, though, the Muir, is no laughing matter, I'm afraid. It's the big one, and it's been relieved. Other races have relieved themselves of having to take it on, but thank goodness it's found a home here on the 3 days of De Panne, because it's brilliant.
Yeah, it is brilliant. Luke Rowe is just punctured. I think he's just on the radio there.
What a time!
Oh, just keep going on that wheel, Luke.
Just keep going and they'll come up and get you. They don't want to lose him at a moment like this because he's actually a decent ally. If they think they can beat him, they'll want to keep him.
Yeah, definitely. That is not good for Luke Rowe, but just keep riding that rim for as long as you can and then hope that the car gets back up to them. But there's no cars here because they send the cars around the other side of Gerardsberg. There we go, motorbike service. This is not ideal for Luke.
No, it's not. Motorcycle service, neutral service. So, and just explain, Magnus, this is not a service engineer at his very best at the moment. As you can see, this is a long old change. A front one would have been more handy.
A front one would have been more handy, but there's also the problem of the wheels are not set up for that type of frame. So the quick release is not in an ideal position, which means it takes longer. And now Luke Rowe has got an awful lot of chasing to do if he's going to get back into that trio up here now. And
what deficit when he gets to them, if he gets to them. So this is Kristoff, and will they engage the old 1-2, Lutsenko and Vestra? Of course they will. To what effect? We'll wait and see. And as you can see, Turbo Durbo is just going under the Claremont inflatable.
And here comes the peloton. Peloton are catching them.
Almost there, almost all back together. So where's Luke Rowe? You've got G3 listed there. Luke Rowe no longer part of the front of the race, but we have Christoph, who's hoping to go as well as he did last time by. Been sick, don't forget, up against Lutsenko and Vestra. Who's your pick?
I think Vestra is looking by far the strongest rider here, and Christoph, though, is in an awkward position there with the two Astana riders who clearly can play a sort of a job on him in the final. One attacks and Christoph will have to chase then, and then it's a question of just counter-attacking on that again, and should only take 1 or 2 times to get rid of someone like Christoph. Although we have seen in the past Ian Stannard doing the same kind of thing with 2 Ethics riders. True and enough. Actually coming out ahead on that one.
Nastiest part of the climb, or one of the stages. There's several steps to this, isn't there, Magnus?
Yeah, there certainly is. But you can see here now, Liu Vestra, who was going so strong up the other climbs here, and on this cobble climb, not being able to put the same amount of pressure on the other riders as he would be on a normal road, and that's who's coming down to the cobblestones.
Was that Mads Pedersen from the original breakaway still chasing on? He had Alex Kirsch, who was also trying to get over. I think it was
Alex.
From Stolting Service. Well, if it's Alex, he's doing an amazing job. Up by the church, as you can see, one of cycling's religious temples, I think it's fair to say. Just by that little place, which at one point used to be a post office and is now, as you can see, a bar, possibly both.
Oh, Luke Rowe is doing a great ride here.
What a fantastic effort by Luke Rowe. No wonder you've been singing his praises, Magnus. That was as gutsy a performance just to get up there on your own as we have seen. Now, the man who wants him to be there, I reckon, is probably Alexander Christoph. Yeah. At the moment, he's under pressure from Lutsenko and Vestra, so let's see if he does get back in.
Yeah, let's see what happens. There's another rider coming here. Is that Kirsch, or is that one of the other riders that's gone clear of the...
If it was Kirsch, it's either him or Mads Pedersen, who's part of the original breakaway. I'm given to thinking it might well be him. If it's Kirsch, that is a stunning ride, because he came straight out of the peloton and may well have gone by. And here come the pack right now, being led, of course, by Cannondale. And Jack Bauer has got an option today. 17.6 kilometres remaining. What options for Alexander Christoph? None but to go for this. And indeed try and work out how to deal with Lutsenko and Vestra, who will be leaning on him.
Yeah, definitely. We've got to think as well, we've got 2 more stages which are likely to come down to more of a bunch sprint than this one would. And Luke Rowe's not actually that far behind. And come on, Luke.
Yeah, go for it, mate. This would be absolutely superb. Luke Rowe checks over his shoulder. He often almost acts as team principal, young man with a great spirit and a great reading of the race, and here he is, not that far in arrears right now. And as I said, I think Christoph will probably be happy to see him, quite frankly. There he is, just hovering into view at the back of the roundabout. No chance of a bunny hop because of some dastardly bushes that have been put there and preventing him doing a Maggie. Round he comes, just gets within sight, and they check over the shoulder, and now they're talking to each other and saying, we've got company, and it's Luke Rowe.
Luke Rowe's about 18, 19 seconds off the back of these guys. It's going to take a massive effort to get back in there with certainly with a Liu Vestra who's going great guns.
It is Pedersen from the original break. Good effort by him. So the big Dane is having a go as well. They might be keeping it Scandinavian with Christoph, of course, also up and in the break versus Kazakhstan and the Netherlands. And not forgetting, of course, our very own Luke Rowe. So 16.5 kilometres to go. It's still a tough one to call. I'm going to stick with Christoph today. I think, despite his diminished condition, I still think he's got something very, very special. Luke Rowe, the efforts he's just put in up the Muir, is that going to hamper him dramatically at the end? They've got one more climb to come, we remind you.
Well, that climb is not quite as difficult, but it's still going to hurt him an awful lot, and taking a fair amount of sting out of his legs.
And indeed, the gap's gone up. Luke Rowe's got company. Mads Pedersen from the original breakaway. Remind you that as they went into town at Gerardsbergen, Luke Rowe punctured, and right now he's got a rider to join with him as he takes on the remainder. It's a rolling section as we get to our final climb, but it doesn't come for another 10 kilometers.
Well, Luke has actually been sitting here waiting for Mats Pedersen to come up to him, so there's a duo, and that duo will certainly go a lot quicker, certainly with the amount of power that Mats Pedersen is currently possessing. I think the pair of them will be able to do a better job. So Luke Rowe loses a couple of seconds, but I think they will gain more by working well together here.
You've got to speculate to accumulate, and that was a good effort by Luke Rowe. Clever stuff, waiting for Mads Pedersen to get onto his wheel, and you look further back, and no surprise, Tony Martin has got to do it on his own now. That's not G2, don't forget, so they're not 32 seconds back, they're a little bit further back than that. One suspects it's around about the 50-second mark. We don't have a time on that, unfortunately. But Tony Martin, I think everyone else knows that he's got to go on his own if he's going to have an option for this race. Starting off as one of the favourites, it does finish with a time trial, but you've got to be in touch, and there it is, 51 seconds back to the group being led by Tony Martin. Yeah,
but it's only 20 seconds between Luke Rowe and the group of Luke Rowe. So I think it's far from over, but I think that the front group here are certainly going to be capable. As long as they keep on working hard and will keep on working together, they should be able to hold off that group, because it's not a big group that Tony Martin is sitting with there now, and there's two Astana riders bossing the front there as well, and just making sure that they are slowing it down as much as they can, because they want these two riders, Lutsenko and Westra, to take this home.
Here we are. This is Luke Rowe riding alongside Mads Pedersen, and indeed they're exchanging duties rather well. Mads Pedersen, supreme effort by him to bridge over, at least to Luke Rowe, who punctured, of course, as they went through Gerardsbergen. Christoph, the defending champion, goes to the front right now. He's been pulling all kinds of faces, and there's a bit of a lockdown at the front here, as you can see, and it's like there's even some smiles in there as they all look at Tony Martin, who goes puppy paws off the front, I'm afraid, and it looks like he's relaxing into I don't know, just get the best he can out of today, and maybe just, I don't know, live to fight another day. What do you think?
Yeah, well, it is, like I said earlier, damage limitation today to try and get himself back on terms as much as he can with a trio up front, so that he can potentially do something with a time trial on the final day and get himself at least up onto the podium. But right now he's not looking particularly good. Peloton have now lost a further few seconds there, up to a minute again.
35 seconds back to the secondary group, so they're still working extremely hard up front. If they can take the final climb, which they'll be on in about 8 kilometers time, I think that's where might even have room for a bit of cat and mousing, to be honest, if they keep on going like this.
Yeah, they will do all that. I don't think they're going to play an awful lot of cat and mouse because of the importance of the overall of the 3 days of the Panne. Leo Westra is certainly going to be keen on this one. Sylvain Chavanel now putting a bit of a move in the front of the bunch here, and straight away Lars Bohm in Astana, they're covering that. Sean de Bie on the wheel, looking rather unhappy about that move. He was puffing a bit.
I like Sean de Bie. Sylvain Chavanel, he's one of these old stagers. I think he'd be happy with us calling him that. He's had such great success in a long career. A very distinctive looking rider. I've seen some caricatures of him that really accentuate that almost lupine look that he has about him. But he is a man who can turn himself into a predator when the situation arises, but it's a massive job for him, even the great Chavanel, to try and draw back a minute here. 36 seconds, the Luke Rowe pairing with Mads Pedersen. I think these guys are good to go. What do you?
Yeah, I think that they're looking strong, and they're still working well together. Christoph still taking his turns and
looking better
and looking happier. Yeah, I think maybe he just needed that little bit of a blowout to get his legs going.
Maybe, who knows? I guess you take whatever methods you can to reignite yourself. And Christoph really, on that last climb up the Muir, he actually had the look of a man who was engaged in an out-and-out sprint. It's usually that picture of his visage. That's where he holds himself when he's really pouring all his energy in. He had to do so, and they've managed to maintain 36 seconds. And as you said, Magnus, it's only 20 back to this group right now, who are starting to just engage. we'll see. Pippo Pozzato loves this race, likewise, from some of the veterans who've been around for a long time. But Alexander Kristoff has been around the block and he's been around this circuit. He knows exactly what he's got to deal with. And frankly, all he's got to deal with right now, I say all, is Lutsenko and Vestra. That's going to be a tough duo to break down, isn't it?
Yeah, that is definitely going to be a toughie. Certainly with the way that Vestra goes up these climbs, and I'd be very surprised if we don't see Vestra going on the Klemhoutstraat up here the final time and trying to go for a solo move.
Corso reminding us that Mads Pedersen won the under-23 Ghent Wevelgem this past weekend, under 23 level, so he's on stellar form. Just drifting to the centre of the overbanding here, where there's that gully down the middle of the road. These are the concrete planks, and you can see them being reflected through the camera as it goes bang, 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 and again and again. It's not comfortable even on the smooth stuff.
No, it certainly isn't. But then that's part of racing in Belgium. That's part of what makes it so special. And why we love coming up here as well is that there is no other country on that has this kind of road network and this type of roads that lends itself so well to full-on racing. It's always exposed. There's always twists and turns and ups and downs, and it just means that whatever day you're racing in Belgium is 100% concentration all the way through the race, or you find yourself coming a cropper.
You know, considering it's been a breakaway for much of the day, and we've had this trio, it was a quartet with Luke Rowe, but he's now 40 seconds back and within sight of the peloton, and as that time gap starts to ebb and flow, you can see that I think it's possibly all over for Luke Rowe and Mads Pedersen. Unfortunate for Rowe, because I think he would have had a big option had he remained part of this quartet. But it's amazing, isn't it, Magnus? We've had this breakaway for so much of the day, but it's been absolutely fascinating, and no let up in the excitement as we wonder, almost as a constant, as to whether they're going to get caught or not. There's a minute now as Rowe and Pedersen are indeed more or less pulled back. There they are. The camera goes down, but it won't be long before the main bunch actually comes through and are within sight, and they don't look overly committed.
And I think they're still working hard, but if I was in the Team Sky car right now, I would have probably said to Luke Rose, look, back off this one, get whatever manpower we got left in that bunch or that group on the front, and start riding and start chasing together with Tony Martin and a few of the others who seem still very keen to try and bring these guys back. 10 kilometers to go. In theory, it should be possible to bring that back, but with the amount of firepower that these three riders are possessing, I still think it will be difficult.
Wow, 42 seconds now, Luke Rowe and Mads Pedersen, and as you can see, only 17 seconds back are the peloton, and of course they have more options, having some of them having rested up or hidden out of the wind, something that was not in the gift, unfortunately, of Luke Rowe, who just had to go for it even with a puncture. These guys are going to go for it. They're I think they've now got the belief, and with 10 kilometers to go, why wouldn't you have? It's a question of who. Alexei Lutsenko in his red shoes. We have Alexander Kristoff in his red Katusha jersey, and in the all blue with the black shoes here. Sounds like prize fighters, doesn't it? We've got Liu Vestra. Honestly, this is going to be interesting. They're approaching now the final climb, the Klemhoutstraat. Now, it's not the most testy climb, but we've been saying, Magnus, that where it comes so late in the day, we'll peak out at 5.3 kilometers to go. Deal with that, and then you can deal with just about anything, I guess.
Well, from there on, it's relatively flat and it just a bit technical running in towards the finish. But I think Kristoff here now is not going to be taking too many more turns. Certainly, if Vestra keeps on going as hard up the hills as he is, I think he would just leave that to. There's a few choice words being exchanged in that position there between Vestra and Kristoff.
Yeah, your turn. To which the next word began with an F. 7, I think it was fine, and he did his job. 8.9 kilometers to go, minute and 5. They've done the job. Now they've got to do a job on each other.
Well, they are going to do a job on each other. There's no doubt about that one. The question is just when he's going to come and who's going to be the first one to go. Lutsenko looking very good on the back there as well, just resting up a bit, I think, and letting Vestra and Kristoff do the work. So I mean, it is in Christoph's interest to keep this going, but at the same time he needs to start thinking about the finish and also the finish of the next couple of days. He don't want to get himself distanced by too much. Should someone like Westra go on the Klemhoutstraat here, he needs to be able to at least bring some seconds back with potential bonus in a sprint finish tomorrow or on Thursday morning. And then yeah.
Westra flicks his arm out, as you can see. I think I mixed up. Somebody's telling me I mixed up my red shoes. I probably did. Oh, look at this! Come on, you better mix it, boys. We're going to have to work together, says Christoph. If you don't want all this to fall to pieces, but they don't want to engage. There's Lutsenko at the back. He's the main threat. Doing the work at the moment is Westra on the front with his red shoes. Sorry if there was a confusion earlier on. Here is Christoph. Just comes through and. When are they going to go for it? Not this far out. They're going to have to work together. But now a minute almost back to the stricken Luke Rowe and Mads Pedersen. Luke Rowe hobbled by a puncture and in fact getting a non-standard rear wheel from a neutral service bike because the service vehicles were not allowed up the Muur. No surprise. One car stops up there, yeah, exactly, wouldn't get up there. 20% maximum, and indeed if a vehicle was to stop there, it would basically halt the entire race, so they have to go elsewhere.
I think the problem they got here now is Lutsenko sitting on the wheel there for a bit, which means that Christoph is getting a bit nervous about what Lutsenko's going to do. So as long as they all three keep on taking their turns, I think Christoph is happy to continue working with the two Astana riders. Anything else, and he'll start thinking about just sitting on the wheel as well.
Well, now he's got an option to do that because the gap has extended, as you can see. It's starting to rock and roll a little bit further back. This is the peloton, and those teams who are now potentially starting to think about closing the gap. And you'll see Tony Martin come through, I am almost certain of it, to start time trialing. There he is, not that far off this group of five. He's got to do something, and it's once they get to the top, he's got 5.3 kilometers to try and start closing the gap, the top of the Kemmelstraat. Now, these guys will engage it fairly soon. It's only 720 meters, and it looked first time by reasonably benign. They took some drinks on board. If anything, it's just going to slow down or at least narrow the gap only, but I think there'll be a healthy one maintained for this trio to go for it later on.
I think they're pretty much home now, as long as they don't start playing too much cat and mouse and stop working together. But the problem is going to be, what does Westra do on this climb? Because if he puts a big attack in and Christoph manages to follow that, then he will not take a turn from that moment on, because he doesn't want to get attacked by Westra, then Lutsenko, then Westra, and so on, and keep that going. Because like I said earlier, it's just a question of time before you pop then.
So has Lutsenko got what it takes to take on Christoph at the last?
I think that's going to be a difficult one. I think even a tired Christoph is still so fast that even Lutsenko will find himself struggling there. But now he's again missing that turn.
Well, they're helping him a little bit for the time being. I wonder what their battle plan is of Astana here. We're on the climb. There we are. It's a 21-meter rise within 720 meters. It all pans out to
2.9%.
Yeah, there we are. It's not that's the average. It's 4.8 at the maximum. It's got a more gentle run in. It does get steeper and steeper before it crests, and then they take that little right-hand turn, and then we start heading back for town. Now, even the approach to town, Magnus, is no easy meet, is it?
No, they're just talking to each other there, the two Astana riders, so I'd be surprised if we don't see a move soon.
Well, they've had a chat. They've got code words, I'm sure, but I wonder what language they were exchanging their views in. Probably Kazakh. I imagine Lou Westra has learnt a bit.
Probably the odd word.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually bad ones.
Yes, it's not ordering breakfast he's interested in at a moment like this. Here we are. Big flick out of the arm, wanting Christoph to do something, and he opens his mouth as if to say, look, I'm towards the end of my resources, and you guys, if you want to win it, you're going to have to put something into it. Well, that's one thing. They are haranguing Christoph here, saying come through, but it doesn't matter how much you shout at him. He'll do his own thing, Christoph, but will it be enough? And here it is, picked up almost straight away. Oh, they are cat and mousing, and Lutsenko just got a change of pace there just to test out the first little cattle prod moment. He's having a look, he's waiting for it, and I think this might well be Vestra that picks it up and goes, and then leaving the two faster men here to duke it out. And then it's going to ask a question, and in fact that's exactly what's happened right now. Vestra rolls to the front. Lutsenko stays on the back wheel of Christoph at the moment, our defending champion, and the pace is back up between these trio. They're racing each other now.
I think Lutsenko's got in his head as he can actually take Christoph in a sprint here, because he's not taking any turns, even though Vestra is telling him to keep on riding and think of the overall a bit more than today's honours. I think Lutsenko is very keen on the stage win here. Well,
if Vestra and Lutsenko are going to start arguing with each other, that's going to be an interesting one. The only man who will finish head and shoulders above them, Alexander Lutsenko, and he's a big guy. He's a big presence as well at a moment such as this, and it's a hard thing to deal with when you've got that amount of talent in a trio and you're on the other side of it.
Yeah, it certainly is, but look at Vestra. Every time he gets to the front, he's just picking up the pace and just driving this on. Lou Vestra is clearly thinking of the overall.
Yep, clearly, and he knows there's a gap of over a minute back to the likes of Tony Martin. Lou Vestra would like that sort of cushion going into the next days. Tomorrow it's the Ghent-Wevelgem styly day with the Kemmelberg, don't forget, and the crosswinds therein. And we have a sprint day on the third and final day. Double phaser, don't forget. We sprint for 111 Ks, ending in a sprint, one for the fast men. And then, of course, the second phase and the final phase, which is the individual time trial, 15 kilometres of it. And you'll be able to see all of it here on Eurosport, your home of cycling, with Magnus Baxter and myself, Carlton Kirby. Let's just remind you, if you want to join the conversation, plenty of you have, and we're thankful of your company today, but it's been so dramatic with so many things happening, we've not really got to you on occasion. But Maggie_PR, PR being Paris-Roubaix, of course, and his pick for Paris-Roubaix, Luke Rowe, looked great today, save for a puncture at the very last into Gerardsbergen, which meant that he wasn't part of this quartet. I think if he'd been here, it would have been ever more interesting. Another element certainly to deal with as we come up to the 3 Ks to go. We're approaching it, Magnus. You thinking Christoph like me?
Well, I'm certainly thinking Christoph. I reckon he's still got the measure of these guys, and oh, this is going to be tight between the bunch and Luke Rowe. Is he going to manage to hold on for...
He might. No bonus seconds, 10, 6 and 4 at the line, which these guys will hoover up. They'll like those, thank you very much. But Luke Rowe and Mads Pedersen are the duo just ahead of the pack, who the peloton at the moment are 1 minute and 1 down. So they pick it up, 2.9 to go, and still the cat and mousing goes in. Few rises and falls. That testy little railway track as well that we've got to deal with on the approach. And then into town, the railway track is something to behold. The last time of taking, they do take the railway track a couple of times, by the way, but the last time is just before the last big right-hander, which will lead us back to the line. And it's about 350 minutes to go, isn't it?
It is exactly 350 minutes to go, and I think the key is going to be to go through that corner first. And Christoph knows this. He's been up here before in this particular stage, but Lutsenko clearly not happy about this, and Vestra not happy about his teammate not taking any turns. He's just
yeah, he's berating him. He's not talking to Christoph. He would expect Alexander Christoph to do his own thing, but he's basically saying to his teammate, look, for goodness sake, this is maybe not about you for the stage, my friend. It could be about me for the title. What are you doing? Of which Lutsenko is offering up absolutely nothing. There we are in terms of response.
Well, this is up to a team manager to make sure that he sorts these guys out and
big
tells
wind
them.
up, and it's an early one, a very early one, maybe too early with 2 kilometers to go. Vestra tries to stay on board here, but Lutsenko just strikes out here.
Yeah, Lutsenko goes for it, but watch Vestra now. Is he going to counter-attack? There was a great opportunity for it, but Christoph clearly aware of what's going on behind him, and straight away, as soon as the pace was let up, he kept an eye back to see where Vestra was.
There we are. So it's Lutsenko at the moment who's just pushing it on. There is Lew Vestra at the back with his red shoes, number 48. Right in the middle of this Katusha sandwich is Alexander Krysov, the defending champion and clearly fastest man and favourite amongst this trio. But what can Astana do to stop him? They don't know. Their battle plans are being shredded before our very eyes here as they start to argue. Westra saying, come on, let's keep the pace up for the overall. I could win this entire race. And Lutsenko just sending eyebrow semaphore back, saying tight-lipped most certainly. And the message delivered was, I fancy this for myself. Likely to help himself, though, is Alexander Krysov. If the Astana boys don't start working together, it's a difficult conundrum for them to deal with as we head towards the Flamme Rouge here. Yeah, definitely going to be a tricky one, and they really haven't got their tactics sorted out, the Astana riders, because Krysov is in the best possible position here now. He's got Lutsenko where he wants him, who's the faster finisher out of the two boys in blue. I think what they're doing now is just playing the whole game straight into the hands of Krysov. It's breezy. You saw the Flamme Horizontale there because of the wind, almost like a wind sock. And I think here Krysov is going to put the wind up these guys. Come on, he says, I'm not going to do this all on my own. I'm not going to have the mickey taken out of you. Big head, shake of the head from Lutsenko. Says, not me, my friend. No, and Westra still with an option, but I think his only option is to possibly try and mug the pair of them and go long, but the time is running out. They're taking the big turn right now, or one of them, I should say. This is your left-hander. They'll come up to a railway bridge. You'll see the road just rising ahead of them on the turn. That'll be 350 meters to go. There's the 500. 150 meters later, they'll be over the bridge. There's the full 50. And still they don't go. Still, Krysov does not want to be mugged here by Lutsenko, who's been taking his turns. Westra just drifts wide. He's going to go on a long one and tempt out a response at 350 to go. Here's your big turn. Still not engaging yet, Krysov. He sails through. He's a big man. He takes up a lot of road, and he takes even more of it as he zigzags all over the place. Here we are, 175 to go. He's going to have to be tempted, but he doesn't want to go all in. He needs to keep something back to keep off Lutsenko. And now he lights it up. This is Krysov going for it. He has to go all in. He buries himself in the line, and is he going to bury everyone else? Of course he is. Alexander Krysov, defending champion, wears number 1, and that number reflected in his position today. He's our leader. Job well done, Maggie.
Job well done for Krysov. It's been some time since I've seen such a poor display of team tactics as I've just witnessed here from Astana. That was absolutely, well, I don't know what to call it really. They could have done that much better. But here we go, Luke Rowe and Mats Pedersen coming across the line just ahead of the bunch.
Yes, indeed. Mats Pedersen just crossing the line in 4th place ahead of Luke Rowe. And seconds down, he's got a 38-second cushion. That might be enough to win all of this. If he carries that to the time trial, Alexander Krysov, absolutely empty. A man who's not been well. He's back.
Yeah, he's clearly in good shape, and managed to play the two Astana riders right where he wanted them. And yeah, I'm just so surprised. Not a single attack from any of the two Astana riders.
Well, they'll take that. I guess Russian funding with Katusha and Astana. The Kazakhs will probably argue with that. But Alexander Krysov, he looks like a warrior. He's the sort of guy, if he was a doorman at a nightclub, you would not argue with if he complained about your shoes.
No, wow. Clearly not. And just heard his comment there to his team. And
what did he say?
I am done.
I'm not surprised. I think that was the polite way of saying it.
Yeah.
Well, the smile's coming back to his face right now, and no surprise. He leads this race. I didn't feel good, he says. Well, he must feel better now. What a great winner on what is a great race, this, isn't it, Magnus? I know it's one of your favourites as well in the build-up to the dead centre, if you like, of the classic season.
Yeah, it certainly is, and this race lends itself very well to aggressive racing and some really interesting racing. And I think we've not seen the last of it. There's 2 more road stages to come, followed by final time trial. So there's a lot more going on.
A lot more to come in this fantastic race. The 3 days of De Panne-Koksijde. There you are, Alexander Krysov finishing today. He gets himself a 10-second bonus. These are the finishing results, by the way. Pim Lichtart in 6th place led home the pack behind Luke Rowe. Belletti Juraj Sagan, brother of Peter, will be busy at the weekend. Sean DeBee as well, managing the top 10. What an opening day, and surely so much more drama to come in this great race. And Christoph, it is. Well, there we are. There's your classement, but that doesn't factor in the bonuses, which will be on the GC tomorrow. Second between them, so they just rejigged the finish there. They had not given them the same time. There was deemed to be a gap, and Christoph, clear winner then today.
Very clear winner, definitely. But I mean, taking a second there as well is fantastic. Let's hear from the big man.
And here he is. Don't know how ready he is to talk.
Alexander Christoph, many congratulations. Second victory in a row here. It wasn't easy though.
Oh, it was really hard. I did not feel strong at all. Vestra was actually the strongest in the group there. He was pulling me and Lutsenko all the way to the line almost. So I tried to contribute, but I did not really have the legs. I said already in the radio I did not feel so good with 2 laps to go, but at the end I managed still to survive, and I was there at the end. So yeah, I haven't been a bit sick, so I think I needed this day to. I hope at least I have a little bit better legs tomorrow, because I was actually suffering all day, but at the end I managed to win, but I was really struggling.
Also at the end they tried to play a game of poker with you, but they didn't surprise you, actually.
They were also riding really for the classement. I know Vestra is really good in the TT, so they are in a good position, and yeah, they were a little bit riding for this, I think, so they didn't attack me so early, and at the end it was so much takes, but I managed to keep them together.
You're not thinking about GC this year then?
I did not feel so strong like I did last year, so I think I will suffer a little bit to do a so good time trial, but I will try. I will see how it goes.
Your illness, that forfeited you for Gent-Wevelgem, what was really wrong?
Oh, I had slightly fever, and yeah, I was feeling really bad in Harelbeke, and next day I was in the bed totally. I could not move, and yeah, I was 2 days almost without bike. So yeah, today I was actually first hard efforts, and yeah, I felt good in the start, but then after 100K I again started to feel a bit bad, but I think it was the same for everybody. It was a hard day.
Yeah, it started really fast, 53K in the first hour with Echelon forming. It was really a tough race.
Yeah, we knew it would be hard, so we started with the team in front and immediately went away, so it split apart from kilometer 0, and it was, for me, all day a block, because just when it come together we went in a counter-attack, so I was all the time in the front, but we never got the big gap, so it was always close.
Congrats, a very classy win. Thank you, Alexander.
Thank you.
It was, as Ryan says, a very, very classy win from a classy rider who today was a class apart. We, of course, race on tomorrow, and we expect your company. What a great opener, Magnus.
Yeah, fantastic opener, and I'm not surprised. Like I've said before, this particular circuit or stage provides a good opportunity for aggressive racing. So, brilliant first day to me.
Well, as the Castle of Leuven, one of Maggie's palaces, drifts by, this is where, on the 10 boss with 29 Ks to go, it was pretty lively. We're still in the sunshine at that point, but plenty of racing still to be had, and the peloton at 46 seconds. At this point, we weren't sure whether they were going to make it back and bring everyone back together.
No, we weren't, and I mean, when Leo Vestra decides to go here, that's an impressive move that he's doing. That whole 10 boss climb, and Lutsenko then bridging across, I think was probably the strongest ride of the day, really. But Vestra was so powerful the whole way. Just didn't get the team tactics right towards the final when the three of them came in.
So that's when the quartet made it. Lutsenko also getting in, as you can see. Christoph was there, so was Luke Rowe. Unfortunately for Luke, as they came into Gerardsbergen just ahead of the mirror, in fact they were already engaging with the cobbles, Luke Rowe picks up a rear puncture, almost the cruelest time to get it, Magnus.
It is the cruelest time to get it, and making the front group and being part of that. And I think Luke would have had a major part in the final, but he manages to pick up a puncture just going onto the cobblestones, and it's one of those things. It's easy, very easy for it to happen, and very unfortunate.
Well, happening as well, he had to have neutral service because cars not allowed up the Muur, the Gerardsbergen. That laid ahead, and they'd taken a different route, so it was a neutral service bike that provided the back wheel and not the favoured back wheel, so not fitting the exact geometry for his bike, of course. Very hard to match that sort of thing. And by the time we got on to the 10th helling of the day, the penultimate one, I'm afraid Luke Rowe, it was too big an ask for him to get back in. He was joined by Mads Pedersen, who'd ridden strongly out of the original breakaway to stay away from the chasers. And in fact, they formed a duo that did come home alone. But sad for Luke Rowe that he got a puncture just when his car wasn't there to service him quickly because of the terrain they had to deal with. So there's the plateau section that the trio went off, and we were asking our questions of ourselves, and Alexei Lutsenko and Leo Vestra were asking questions of each other as to how this race strategy was to pan out. It was Kazakhstan shutdown as far as Lutsenko was concerned with his ears. He didn't want to hear anything that Leo Vestra was saying about bidding for the overall. I think he thought he could win today with a sick Alexander Kristoff in the trio amongst them. Luke Rowe chasing on with Mads Pedersen, but it wasn't to be bridgeable, I'm afraid, by the end. And so we came down to the very last. We dealt with our final climb, the Klemutstraat, and when it flattened out, it went a bit flat, at least strategy-wise, Magnus, for Astana.
Yeah, I think there's a clear lack of communication going on here, and directive from their orders. But as they're coming into towards the finish line, there was really only one